According to the memories in his mind, the Machina God tier was not only the master god of the laws of technology, but also the master god tier of the two laws of time and space. The three master god tier level nomological powers, coupled with the terrifying means of creating a master god tier mechanical god spirit, created the terrifying reputation of the Machina god, making him one of the top 10 master gods. It was not surprising that the eternal mothership that he had spent so much effort to build had such power. How do you feel about this consciousness of the master god tier? Zhou thought for a moment and asked Wenya. Don't worry, your majesty. Wenya immediately understood the meaning behind Zhou's words. She nodded and said, the eternal mothership has already been modified by the supreme will and has become your Lord Talent creation, your majesty. Even if the highest authority intelligence of the spaceship is the consciousness of the machine god tier, it will definitely not cause any harm to your majesty and will not reveal your majesty's secret. Only then did Zhou feel completely relieved. After that, Zhou and Wenya chatted for a while about the eternal mothership. Then, they personally entered the eternal mothership and circled it a few times before flying out of the eternal mothership in satisfaction. Then, he gave Wenya 10 million true god tier divine crystals and 10,000 master god tier divine crystals. He was to be used as a backup energy source for the eternal mothership, waiting to be used in the coming war. Then, he told Wenya that from tonight onwards, Baiyun would lead an army to deal with the Scarlet Invasion Force. Don't worry, your majesty. I will definitely complete the mission, Baiyun said solemnly. The Scarlet Army led by AUS was indeed aggressive. However, his master god tier advanced grade eternal mothership wasn't shabby either. When necessary, he would activate the master god tier weapon and let them know how powerful the master god tier weapon that the Machina god had painstakingly created was at most. The eternal mothership was a super cosmic warship specially designed for war. He was least afraid of war. Zhou nodded slightly. He only had 40% confidence in this war without the eternal mothership. Then, now that he had the eternal mothership, his chances of winning this war had suddenly increased to 70%. After that, Wenya flew back to the eternal mothership and disappeared into the air. Then, she left the shrine and went to meet up with Baiyun. Zhou glanced at the number of Lord Talent crystal fragments he had left. Putting aside his other Lord Talent crystal fragments, he still had more than 3.7 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments. Could also increase a few mythical tier 1 Lord Talents. He looked at his other Lord Talents and looked for anything suitable to level up at this time. Soon, his gaze landed on a Lord Talent. Epic, tier Lord Talent, Dark Walker. He looked at this Lord Talent thoughtfully. It was this Lord Talent that allowed the subjects under him to become fog monsters without being affected by the scarlet fog at night. They could even turn creatures that had not become fog monsters into normal life forms again. The subjects under him were all Dark Walkers. Even the secret medicines related to the professions of Dark Walkers had been developed by the pharmacists, physicians, alchemists, and other pharmaceutical life professions in the territory. They had developed second-generation potions, third-generation potions, and even more. Now, the Dark Walker profession had completely flourished in Zhou's hands. Initially, Zhou had never thought of upgrading this profession. He could make this Lord Talent stronger just by researching it himself after all. However, since his soldiers were going to fight the fog monster day and night, he would upgrade it. In any case, he had quite a number of Lord Talent crystal fragments. Of course, the most important reason was that Zhou felt that among the many Lord Talents he had, there were not many that could deal with the current situation. He could only choose the big one among the short ones and choose to upgrade the Dark Walker's Lord Talent. Then, he no longer hesitated. He took out 1.1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and raised the Dark Walker from the epic tier to the mythical tier. Then, he looked at the new Lord Talent notification that appeared in front of him. Lord Talent, Scarlet Predator, mythical tier, unique level, specific talent effect 1. When you fight with the Scarlet Fog monsters, you will ignore the negative impact of the Scarlet Fog environment on you and your subjects. You will also receive an additional 300% increase in strength. Specific talent effect 2. You and your subjects can disguise as forces under the Crimson Overlord and infiltrate the enemy to do whatever you want. Specific talent effect 3. You and your subjects are enhanced by the Supreme Power. When fighting the Scarlet Fog monsters, the Supreme Power can eliminate the additional strength enhancement obtained by the Fog monsters because of the Scarlet Fog environment. Moreover, when you and your subjects attack, you will cause additional Supreme Strength damage to the enemy. The injuries of the Fog monster that is injured by the Supreme Strength will become extremely difficult to heal. When attacking, it will greatly reduce the other party's defense ability, making it easier for you and your subjects to kill the Scarlet Fog monster. Specific talent effect 4. After you and your subjects kill the Scarlet Fog monster, if you and your subjects were a life form under the Supreme Will when you were alive, you will reconstruct your body and soul and be reborn as a life form under the Supreme Will. Specific talent effect 5. After you and your subjects kill the Scarlet Fog monster, you will obtain all the loots of the Scarlet Fog monster. Specific talent effect 6. The Crimson Overlord has noticed you and treats you as its absolute natural enemy. In the future, you might be attacked by the forces under the Crimson Overlord often. They will destroy you at all costs within the rules. Specific talent effect 7. The Supreme Will has noticed you and treats you as its absolute ally. When you encounter an attack from the forces under the Crimson Overlord, the Supreme Will send the Supreme Army to rescue you and protect your ally with all its might. Jojo's eyes lit up after reading it. Scarlet Natural Enemy? This Lord Talent effect is completely targeted at Scarlet Fog monsters. It's just that Talent effect 5 is a little useless. I'm already the king of loots. Why would I need this effect? He muttered to himself. His heart could not help but burn with passion. He never expected that his last resort would give him such a huge surprise. However, when he saw the effects of the last 2 Lord Talents, he was instantly dumbfounded. Good God! He had become the Crimson Overlord's natural enemy. Since when did this Lord Talent have a negative buff? However, he felt slightly better when he saw the effects of the Lord Talent on the last day. Never mind. At my level, whether I have this Lord Talent or not will probably be a thorn in the Crimson Overlord's side. Don't think about it anymore. Jojo stopped thinking about it and prepared to see what other Lord Talents he could upgrade next. Jojo took a few glances, and he inexplicably couldn't look away just as his gaze swept past Master Thief's robbery gloves. He could not help but have a thought after he sensed its abnormality. This is my epic tier Lord Talent. Talent intuition is reminding me about something? His gaze was fixed on this Lord Talent. Could my innate intuition be reminding me to upgrade this Lord Talent? The Master Thief's robbery gloves? Jojo frowned slightly. With this legendary tier Lord Talent, the success rate of theft was infinitely close to 100% due to the enhancement of his King of Loots. He felt that even if this Lord Talent was upgraded to the only level of the mythical tier, there wouldn't be much substantial improvement. Therefore, he had never thought of upgrading his Lord Talent to the only level of mythical tier. But now, let's upgrade. In any case, it's not difficult for me to collect 1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talents now. Jojo no longer hesitated. He took out 1 billion green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into a mythical tier 1 and only Lord Talent crystal fragment. Then, he used it silently in his heart and upgraded the Master Thief's robbery gloves to the mythical tier. Unique level. The next second, a hexagonal crystal pendant emitting the aura of a Master God tier divine artifact slowly appeared in front of him. Is this my mythical tier unique Lord Talent's innate creation? Jojo's eyes lit up as he looked at the pendant and sensed the aura of a Master Divine artifact emanating from it. Legendary tier Lord Talent, Master Thief's robbery gloves was only a high-tier deity-level divine artifact. A mythical tier unique talent creation had actually directly become a top-notch Master God tier divine artifact. Not bad. Not bad. He played with the talent pendant in his hand for a while. After confirming that it had automatically recognized him as its master, a smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Then, he hung it around his neck and put it into his clothes. Then, he directly fused it into his divine body. Then, he felt that this master god-tier divine artifact had directly fused into his soul, becoming indistinguishable from his soul. Zhou nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that this master god-tier divine artifact had completely fused with him. Compared to the few master god-tier divine artifacts that he had obtained through the King of Lutes, the difficulty of a talent acknowledging a master was the difference between heaven and earth, as expected of his Lord Talent creation. Then, he looked at the information of this Lord Talent. Lord Talent, Thief of Heart, Mythical Tier, Unique, Thief of Heart, Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Artifact, Soulbinder, Zhou. After the user's soul recognizes the Thief of Heart pendant as its owner, they can sense other life forms through their mind. Without touching it, they can know and steal items that can be stolen from the other party's body, and it will make the other party unable to detect it for a short period of time. Lord Talent Notification 1. Whether the item can be stolen depends on the corresponding drop rate of loots after the life form's death and the difference in strength between the other party and the user. The stronger the other party is, the lower the success rate of stealing. The weaker the other party is, the higher the success rate of stealing. Lord Talent Notification 2. The Thief of Heart can steal the property of other life forms, external items, talents, bloodlines, and other items that are not life-threatening. Lord Talent Notification 3. Other than the user, no other life form can obtain the information of this Master God Tier Divine Artifact in any way. Lord Talent Notification 4. The owner of the Thief of Heart has a 100% chance of stealing an item from another life form every day without attracting the other party's attention. Lord Talent Notification 5. Owner of the Thief of Heart. You can steal items infinitely as long as you have enough energy. When stealing items normally, you will obtain a fixed 10% chance of success. However, after the theft fails, there is a 50% chance of alerting the stolen person. Lord Talent Notification 6. The owner of the Thief of Heart is regarded as automatically inheriting the inheritance of the Thief of Heart Master God Tier. The inheritance of the Thief of Heart Master God Tier is in the Fallen Heart realm. Be careful that the owner of the Heart Thief will automatically obtain the inheritance notification when he approaches the Heart realm. Zhou's eyes lit up after reading it. He looked at the first Lord Talent notification and clicked his tongue in wonder. I don't need to touch the other party. I just need to sense the other party and think about stealing the other party's items. Good boy. A thief's divine artifact, and it's a lot more convenient for me. He nodded in satisfaction. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since he used this Lord Talent to collect the excess Lord Talent crystal fragments from the lords in his territory. He could gather them all and make a huge harvest when he could gather. The Lord Talent notifications 2 and 3 remained the same. The effect of Lord Talent notification 4 was not bad. It could 100% steal the items on the other party's body without attracting the other party's attention. Perhaps it would be of great use at times. The effect of the 5th Lord Talent was not bad either. It could have an unlimited number of steals and a fixed 10% success rate. No matter how difficult an item was to steal, with the 100% drop rate provided by the King of Lutes and this 10% fixed success rate, it shouldn't be difficult to steal, right? The last effect of the Lord Talent made Zhou's eyes light up. He also did not expect that behind this Master God Tier Divine Artifact, there was actually the inheritance of a Master God Tier. With this Master God Tier Divine Artifact, he would automatically have the right to inherit this Master God Tier's inheritance. TSK. That was the legacy of a genuine top-notch Master God Tier. There must be a shocking amount of wealth inside. There might even be other Master God Tier Divine Artifacts. Heart Realm. It sounds like one of the myriad worlds. Moreover, it should be the Master God Tier origin world of the Thief of Heart Master God Tier. In other words, it's a great thousand world. I can directly find the other party's location with the Bodhi Supreme around. With the Eternal Mothership around, It won't be long before I reach the Heart Realm. I'll make a trip to the Heart Realm and inherit the inheritance of this Master God tier when I leave the High Continent in the future. Zhou quickly came up with a plan. Currently, he had no intention of leaving the High Continent. At the very least, he had to wait until the end of this event. Then, he looked at the number of green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments he had left. There were still more than 2.7 billion of them, enough to upgrade 2 mythical tier unique Lord Talents. He began to look at his many Lord Talents again. However, after reading it, he frowned slightly. This was because he had just realized that most of his Lord Talents were actually Lord Talents that assisted the development of his territory and the growth of his personal strength. Only the Lord Talent, King and Lord Talent, Scarlet Natural Enemy could directly increase the combat power of himself and his soldiers. The key was that these 2 Lord Talents had already been upgraded to the mythical tier, which meant there was nothing else that could be upgraded among the Lord Talents that he had mastered. He thought for a moment, took out the Bodhi Supreme and asked, "Bodhi Supreme, can you help me find a Lord Talent that can directly increase my combat strength among my Lord Talent crystal fragments? Just like how you found the King among the many Lord Talent crystal fragments?" The Bodhi Supreme shook its head and said solemnly, "The Lord Talent crystal fragment is very precious, and its use is not only what you know now. Don't think that gaining 1 billion or 2 Lord Talent crystal fragments in one battle is a lot. These Lord Talent crystal fragments will be easily consumed in the future. I suggest you keep these Lord Talent crystal fragments. In any case, your combat strength is already strong enough. There's no need to add icing on the cake. Even if I really choose a Lord Talent that can directly increase your combat strength, it won't be of much help to you." Zhou raised his eyebrows. "What other uses does the Lord Talent crystal fragment have?" he asked. "I'll tell you when you advance to the mid-tier deity level elementary grade, but it requires a number of official questions." "Sure," Zhou said without hesitation. It seemed that the answer to this question was quite valuable. Could actually be used as an official question. After that, he listened to Bodhi Supreme and stopped upgrading his Lord Talent. Then he continued cultivating. According to the advancement requirements of a Lord God Spirit, they had to first advance to the position of a country before advancing to the position of a god. Now that he was already the ruler of the beginner empire, as long as he comprehended enough laws, he could directly advance to the high-tier deity level advanced grade. He could feel that he was not far from the mid-tier deity level elementary grade. At the same time, in the Blazing Sun Imperial Palace, Zhou's second clone, Zhou was sitting on the throne dealing with government affairs. Virtual memorials were quickly reviewed by him. In just a short while, more than half of the memorials had been processed. The surrounding maids could not help but exclaim in their hearts when they saw this scene. Even though they had seen this scene more than once, they could not help but admire their emperor in their hearts every time they saw it. He had not been in contact with government affairs for long, but his experience and brilliance in handling government affairs were much better than Prime Minister Zheng, who was previously in charge of government affairs. Even Prime Minister Zheng had publicly admitted that he was far inferior to His Majesty in terms of efficiency, foresight, and other aspects. As expected of the emperor of their Blazing Sun Empire, he was simply like a natural god emperor. At this moment, outside the hall, a yellow talisman Dao soldier guard quickly walked in and whispered, "Your Majesty, the Prime Minister and Legion Commander of the Heavenly Map Army request an audience." "Let them in," Zhou said without looking up. "Yes, Your Majesty," the yellow talisman Dao soldier guard said respectfully before quickly taking his leave. Soon, Zhang Yuanqi and Wu Tu walked in and said respectfully, "Zhang Yuanqi/Wu Tu greets Your Majesty." "What is it?" Only then did Zhou look up at the two of them. "Your Majesty," Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. "The number of subjects, professionals, worshipped god spirits, and true god tier who joined our territory today has been calculated by Lady Wanya. Your Majesty, please take a look." With that, he controlled his personal terminal and projected the statistical chart in front of Zhou. Was the results of the supreme conquest out? At this thought, Zhou Manage immediately looked over expectantly. New subject: non-professionals, professionals, heroes, god spirits, true god tier, statistics, unemployed professionals. 125,693,545,801,598 people. Professionals: Life plus Battle 11. 15257880001 520. Heroes: 394,618. God spirits: low god plus mid-tier deity level plus high-tier deity level 66,390. True god tier: 5 true god tier elementary grade god spirits, 3 intermediate true god tier god spirits, 2 advanced true god tier god spirits. A smile appeared on Zhou Manage's face after reading it. As a result, the number of god spirits under him reached 85,828. There were a total of 200 true god tiers. It was much stronger than before, even though it was far inferior to Ao's army. Leave 10,000 god spirits and 10 true god tiers in the territory to join the Homeland Defense Army and be in charge of guarding the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. As for the remaining god spirits, incorporate them into the army and fight alongside the army. Zhou Manage thought for a moment and immediately made arrangements. Territory was his top priority. If he were to fight outside and return to discover that his territory had suddenly been lost and that he had lost his status as a lord, then it would be meaningless no matter how many territories he occupied. Therefore, it was very necessary to leave some high-end forces in the territory to prevent their homes from being stolen. The remaining god spirits naturally had to be incorporated into his army and fight with he in the Supreme Continent and even the myriad worlds in the future. Yes, Your Majesty, Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. Zhou Manage nodded. Your Majesty, among these new subjects are about 1 trillion combat-type professionals and soldier-type professionals. Should we include them in the army that goes out to fight? Zhang Yuanqi asked. No need. Incorporate them into the Homeland Defense Army. Zhou Manage shook his head. The Homeland Defense Army was the weakest army under him. These combat professionals and military professionals were exactly what the Homeland Defense Army needed. Moreover, he did not lack 1 trillion combat-type professionals now. He would stay behind as the defense force of the territory. In the future, all combat-type professionals among the new subjects will join the Homeland Defense Army unless they have extremely high potential. Also, transfer Deputy Commander Wu Xin to the Homeland Defense Army to become the official Legion Commander of the Homeland Defense Army. Zhou Manage thought for a moment and added, Wu Xin was extremely loyal to him, and he was very experienced. He was also extremely proficient in the offensive and defensive aspects of military formations. Leaving him, as the Legion Commander of the Homeland Defense Army to protect the safety of the territory made him feel at ease. Yes, Your Majesty. Zhang Yuanqi nodded respectfully and secretly clicked his tongue. Wu Xin was a trusted aide who had followed His Majesty since the beginning. He had a lot of prestige in the army and had a wide network. In addition, His Majesty stated that he wanted to transfer the combat professionals from the new subjects to join the Homeland Defense Army. Combined, that seemed that the Homeland Defense Army would definitely rise up in the future. Oh yes, there should be more refugees, heroes, god spirits, and even true god tier joining our territory tomorrow. You've got the regions getting ready. Zhou Manage suddenly pondered of this. Today, he had conquered 3 races and destroyed 7 high-level Scarlet Empires. It triggered the effect of the Supreme Conquest countless times, so there would definitely be more ordinary refugees, professionals, heroes, god spirits, and true god tier coming to join his territory the next day. Yes, Your Majesty, Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. He didn't say anything else and silently retreated. When Wu Tu saw this, he took a step forward and stated respectfully, Your Majesty, we possess new information on Her Majesty Elizariel's Elven Empire. Shoot, Zhou Manage said. After the battle at Elizariel's original Elven Empire ended, She led an army and charged into the territory of the behemoth Divine Kingdom. However, just as they were about to reach the legendary tier territory that was more than 1,000,000 kilometers away from Behemoth Divine Kingdom's divine capital, Denden, more than 5 million mixed-blood behemoths, more than 1,000,000 pure-blooded behemoths, and 10 true god-level amethyst behemoths suddenly emerged in the Red Maple Mountain range. After they appeared, they immediately charged towards Elizariel's army. During the war, they killed the great guardian of the elves and severely injured Seagates, the mother of the elves, to the point that she fell into a deep sleep. After that, Elizariel's army was completely defeated, and more than half of the 100 billion-strong army was killed or injured. Currently, the Behemoth Divine Kingdom is pursuing complete victory. It seems that they want to completely destroy the original Elven Empire. According to my estimation, if there is no other external help, the original Elven Empire will completely disappear from the High Continent in less than 2 days. Jomanage was shocked. More than 1,000,000 pure-blooded behemoths and 10 true god-tier amethyst behemoths? Was the foundation of the Behemoth Divine Kingdom so deep? Not to mention anything else, just these 1,000,000 pure-blooded behemoths alone were equivalent to more than 1,000,000 pure-blooded dragons of the dragon race. He recalled something. His expression changed slightly as he inquired in a deep voice, "How's Nadia?" Wu Tu was silent for 2 seconds before saying, "The first-generation blood fire arrow elf, Nadia, has already died in the Battle of the Red Maple Mountains. According to my information, Nadia was killed by a true god-tier of the Behemoth tribe when she was trying to cover for Elizariel's retreat." Jomanage was stunned. Nadia? Zhou, who had transformed into a scholar and traveled the continent to comprehend the Lord's laws, could not help but sigh when he learned that Nadia had died from the memories shared by Jomanage. This was how war worked. Those who participated would never be able to guess if the next person to die in the war would be them or their relatives and friends. However, he wasn't too sad. He had the ability to revive after all. He could directly revive Nadia after he obtained one of her relics. There was nothing to be sad about. Nadia, you chose to reject my invitation in order to repay Elizariel for her resurrecting you. Now, you died in the battle for the Divine Kingdom's throne in order to protect Elizariel. The kindness of resurrection that you care about has been returned to the other party, right? Zhou thought to himself Nadia was the first hero he had come into contact with. Furthermore, he pitied her. He also had some complicated feelings for Nadia. That was why he had taken the initiative to invite Nadia to stay in his kingdom when he saw her again. However, the other party refused. Zhou didn't force him to stay. If he were to invite the other party again, the other party should have no reason to reject him, right? This thought flashed across Zhou's mind. Then he shook his head with a smile and stopped thinking about it. He continued to look at the Human Clan Classic in his hand as he walked into the distance. On the throne in the blazing sun Imperial Palace, Jomanage said after a moment of silence, "Collect Nadia's relics that can be used for resurrection and send them back to this emperor." "Yes, Your Majesty," Wu Tu said respectfully. "Any other information?" Jomanage asked. "Your Majesty, there's other relevant information. According to the Heavenly Map Army, Elizariel's original Elven Empire army was divided into 3 parts after being defeated by the Behemoth Divine Kingdom. Some of them became stragglers who only cared about running for their lives. The rest fled in the direction of the other Elven empires. And the last portion is coming to our country," Wu Tu said respectfully. Jomanage raised his eyebrows. These guys, could they have been defeated and wanted to run to him to ask for help? Even though he was old friends with Nadia, he was only old friends with Nadia. What did it have to do with your original Elven Empire? It was impossible for him to rely on this friendship to save the entire original Elven Divine Kingdom. Moreover, previously, the Elven Empire had promised to help him increase his faction points. There was no such offer on the table now. They hadn't even returned the favor, and wanted him to help again and get him into trouble. Jomanage wasn't a fool, so he naturally wouldn't accept it. "Your Majesty, How should we deal with these fleeing Elven Empire deserters? Zhang Yuanqi probed. Stop them outside the border. Zhou Manage said calmly. Yes, Your Majesty. Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. Wu Tu, continue to assign a portion of intelligence personnel to investigate this divine kingdom's battle for its throne. Zhou Manage said. Yes, Your Majesty. Wu Tu said respectfully. Zhou Manage nodded slightly. Then, he thought of something and asked Zhang Yuanqi. By the way, how's the matter of the human race moving out of the primordial world? Don't worry, Your Majesty. This matter is going very smoothly. Furthermore, we have also compensated the human clansmen whose interests were damaged during the relocation process. Zhang Yuanqi said respectfully. Zhou Manage nodded. After the three of them chatted for a while, Wu Tu and Zhang Yuanqi took their leave. Zhou Manage also persisted to deal with government affairs. Zhou Fight was in charge of keeping an eye on the front line. Unless he was in a desperate situation and needed the help of more top combatants, this internal affairs clone did not have to leave the territory. At the same time, Zhou Fight had already led an army of 10 trillion, more than 80,000 god spirits, and 194 true god tier to the Chaos Scarlet Empire's Scarlet Army. They were currently on their way. High up in the sky, a black cosmic mothership that was 100 billion times smaller floated quietly in the vacuum. It was the Eternal Mothership. However, even though he had shrunk by 100 billion times, his diameter had still reached an astonishing 1 light-year long. With such a huge creature, the 800 trillion-odd troops, 30 million-odd Scarlet God Spirits, and 5,000-odd Scarlet True God Tier did not seem to notice it at all. They were still marching on their own. They had no idea that the enemy had arrived. Inside the Eternal Mothership in the Eternal World was a combat meeting space specially customized by the Eternal Mothership for the captain and the core members of the Mothership. This was a combat meeting space specially customized by the Eternal Mothership for the captain and the core members of the Mothership. Even though they were already prepared, they still felt a little suffocated looking at the terrifying number of troops below. Such a terrifying force, excluding the Master God tier techniques they possessed, even high-level Divine Kingdom Lord factions would probably not be able to take them out, right? Only the legendary Overlord-level Lord factions or even Overlord-level races could take out such troops, right? However, when they realized that the Scarlet Army did not discover their location, they could not help but click their tongues in wonder. The upgraded Eternal Mothership was indeed extraordinary. They did not escape into space and rely on the complicated interlayer of space as cover. Instead, they only relied on the invisible function of the Eternal Mothership to hide in the sky. How could he not be discovered by the other party? The Eternal Mothership was awesome. His Majesty is awesome. They sighed in their hearts. Zhou Fight was also very surprised by this. Then he felt refreshed. The feeling of being crushed by technology was so comfortable. It was not in vain that he had spent so many Lord Talent Crystal Fragments to upgrade the gift of the Machina to the mythical tier unique level. At this moment, a calm mechanical voice sounded. Your Majesty, all targets of special concern have been discovered. A virtual map appeared in front of Zhou Fight and the generals. Zhou Fight and the generals immediately gazed over. The virtual map displayed the marching situation of the Scarlet Army below. Dense red dots of various sizes were marked on it, representing the strong and weak in the Scarlet Army. Among these red dots, there were also some special red dots that were specially marked out. They were also marked with the name of the faction and the total number of forces and other military information. Everyone gazed over one by one. Chaos Scarlet Empire, Demon Scarlet Empire, Dark Capital Scarlet Empire, Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire, Carpool Scarlet Empire. Yes, these Scarlet factions that had been specially marked out were the targets of Zhou Fight and the others, the 93 high-level Scarlet Empires. As Bai Yun and the rest gazed at the location of the Scarlet Empire, they were amazed. They had never expected that not long after they arrived, this Eternal Mothership would have already found their target among the 8,000 trillion-odd Scarlet troops. They had never expected that not long after they arrived, this eternal mothership would have already found their target among the 8,000 trillion scarlet troops. A faint grin appeared on Zhou Feit's face. The first performance of the eternal mothership didn't disappoint him. He felt more confident in this war. Good work, Zero. Zhou Feit praised. Zero. Even the highest authority sentient life form on this eternal mothership was the name of the consciousness that the machine god tier had assigned to this master god tier spaceship. It was uttered that the other party was the first intelligent life form of the Machina race to become a life form. He was an existence like the creator of the Machina race. This was where the name Zero came from. Zero explained. Zhou smiled gently. Then he looked at Baiyun. When Baiyun saw this, she took the initiative to step forward and said coldly, "I'll lead the troops there now to lure the enemy's main force out of the Scarlet Army. Go on. Be careful. These 93 high-level Scarlet Empires are all in the center of this Scarlet Army. It's not easy for you to lure them all out. You can take the Cosmos Emperor to lure them." This emperor looks at their flying tools. The highest is only an intermediate grade true god tier. In terms of speed, they definitely can't compare to a true god tier advanced grade Cosmos Emperor. Zhou Feit said. Cosmos Emperor was the best true god tier warship on the Eternal Mothership. It was only inferior to the other 3 Eternal warships and the Eternal Mothership itself. He carried a total of 100 spaceships on the Eternal Mothership. Each of them could carry 100 trillion troops and 100 trillion units of supplies. Furthermore, they were extremely fast. It could be said that they were the pinnacle of all true god-tier advanced-grade spaceships. Using him to lure the high-level Scarlet Empire should be more than enough as long as they did not underestimate the enemy. As for the Eternal Mothership, it was too big of a target. In addition, Zhou saw it as his trump card, so he did not plan to use this strongest battleship in the universe now. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. I promise to be careful." Baiyun nodded vigorously and led most of the generals and god spirits present to leave the Eternal World. Soon, Zhou Feit saw Cosmos Emperor activate its stealth mode and fly out of the Eternal Mothership's wireless realm space. Then it silently approached the edge of the Scarlet Army. Just as they were 50,000 to 60,000 kilometers away from the Scarlet Army, the Cosmos Emperor quietly stopped. At a time like this, the Scarlet Army still failed to discover the approaching Cosmos Emperor. This did not mean that the Cosmos Emperor's anti-detection system could ignore the main god-tier reconnaissance methods of the Scarlet Army. It was because even though Cosmos Emperor was close to the Scarlet Army, it was still within the range of the Eternal Mothership's anti-reconnaissance radar. It was precisely because of the Mothership's protection that its existence was not exposed. Speaking of which, after Cosmos Emperor arrived at the edge of the Scarlet Army, it opened the hatch. Then, a total of 194 true god-tier consecrators flew out of Cosmos Emperor. Then, they opened their world domains and enveloped the Scarlet Army in front of them. At this moment, these Scarlet Fog monsters finally realized that they had been ambushed. However, it was too late. The true god-tiers led by Qi Xiantian, Yuan Song, and Kika released their strongest attacks at the Scarlet Fog monsters. Countless nomological lights enveloped these 3 trillion fog monsters. In an instant, more than 1 trillion fog monsters died. The remaining 2 trillion fog monsters were also heavily injured. This was the terrifying power of nearly 200 true god-tier combatants combined. Their destructive power and lethality were simply like a dimensional attack facing the low-level soldiers. No matter how many low-level soldiers there were, they could not resist Baiyun's 194 true god tier. This was also why in war, both sides were required to fight against ordinary soldiers, ordinary god spirits against ordinary god spirits, and true god tiers against true god tiers. If they fought across realms, the consequences would not be good for anyone. Among the 30 trillion fog monsters, there were originally more than 100 Scarlet True God tiers and more than 5,000 ordinary Scarlet God spirits. However, under the surprise attack of Baiyun and the other True God tiers, more than 20 of these 100 True God tiers had died. More than 2,000 ordinary Scarlet God spirits had also died. Bang! 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 A massive amount of promotion energy from the killings surged into the bodies of all the true god tiers like a surging river. Under the protection of the mythical tier unique Lord Talent, 10 Divine Protection Master God Terrence, more than 20 true gods broke through their original calmness and reached the level of an intermediate grade or even advanced grade true god. These true god tiers who had broken through could not help but be pleasantly surprised when they felt their advancement. Originally, they only wanted to launch a sneak attack before the war and use this opportunity to lure the enemy. They did not expect that they would use this opportunity to advance directly. The other true god tiers looked enviously at these true gods who had broken through. All true god tier worshippers, return to Cosmos Emperor. At this moment, Bayun ordered in a deep voice. The true god tier returned to their senses and returned to Cosmos Emperor without hesitation. They piloted Cosmos Emperor and quickly distanced themselves from the Scarlet Fog monsters. At this moment, many fog monsters had already seen where they were. They looked at the Scarlet Fog monsters and Scarlet Fog god spirits that had mostly died and were immediately enraged. Then they led an army of billions, more than 1,000 Scarlet True God tiers, and more than 5 million Scarlet God spirits to drive the Scarlet battleship and charge at Cosmos Emperor. Then, something that made them even angrier and aggrieved happened. This was because they realized that the Scarlet warships on their side were far inferior in speed to the enemy who had suddenly appeared and ambushed them. They could only watch the rear of the other party's warship, but they could not get close to and destroy the other party. Just as they were unwilling to give up and wanted to retreat, the spaceship that launched the sneak attack actually flew back again and fired another round of true god tier shots at them from afar. Even though they had prepared their defenses in time and blocked more than half of the other party's theoretical attacks, they had also lost more than 200 billion Scarlet soldiers, more than 800 Scarlet god spirits, and 3 Scarlet true god tiers. The forces of the Scarlet Kingdom were furious when they saw this. I wanted to let you go, but I didn't expect you to be so cheap as to come and hit us again. Who could tolerate this? Hence, they gave chase again. Then, the spaceship that launched the sneak attack flew far away again, putting a distance between them, leaving them with no choice but to retreat unwillingly. The leading true god tier advanced grade Scarlet God Spirit was incomparably furious in the Scarlet Army. However, he also felt very helpless. The highest level spaceships they had were only at the high tier deity level advanced grade. It was incomparable to the other party's true god tier spaceship. He took a deep breath and stated to his subordinate beside him in a gloomy tone, "Inform Your Excellency Aus. Just say that we encountered a sneak attack by a true god tier from the high continent. The spaceship that the other party is on is far inferior to ours. I hope that Lord Aus can send a higher-level spaceship to support us. Otherwise, if the other party continues to exhaust us for such a long time, it won't be long before we lose a considerable number of troops." "Yes, Your Excellency," the subordinate stated respectfully and immediately sent a message to Aus. On the other side, inside the Eternal Mothership in the Eternal World, Zhou looked at his right hand in bewilderment. He had wanted to try to use the 10,000 Spirit Saint on a portion of the troops while the two sides were fighting. However, just as he was about to use the 10,000 Spirit Saint, he suddenly felt an inexplicable palpitation in his heart. It was as if he used the 10,000 Spirit Saint. He would be consigned to eternal damnation. It should be my innate intuition that's warning me. Among these Scarlet Fog monsters, is there a monster or treasure that can restrain me? The 10,000 Spirit Saint? Zhou Fight guessed. Zhou Fight's expression was solemn. He and his main body had used the 10,000 Spirit Saint and the previous insight defection many times, but he had never encountered such a situation. While he had already been prepared for this when he obtained this Lord Talents, be it the 10,000 Spirit Saint or insight defection, they had to be used openly on the battlefield. There was no way to hide it. Therefore, if an enemy studied his past war experiences, they would definitely discover his powerful move. Then, in order to deal with him, it would not be surprising for them to develop corresponding countermeasures. However, even though he was mentally prepared, he still felt a little depressed when he faced this moment. It was a good trump card, but it could not be used. Zhou Fight felt that it was a pity. Then, he looked at the 8,000 trillion-odd trillion scarlet troops and pondered. What kind of trump card could restrain his only mythical tier Lord Talent creation? He thought for a moment and thought of a few possibilities. They were either special-grade treasures, extremely high-grade race divine artifacts, master god-tier regal experts, or even higher existences who had mastered the Lord's Law or Lord's Law creation. Among them, a master god-tier regal expert was first eliminated by him. Such existences were all comparable to supreme god realms or even will-level existences. How could they interfere in his small matters? No matter how strong AUS was, it was impossible for him to have such face. As for other methods, Zhou Fei thought about it and was not sure. In the end, he decided not to think about it. It's most likely in Aus hands, no matter what method it is. When AUS comes out, I'll use my Thief of Heart to check on him. If I can steal it, I'll steal it. At that time, I'll be able to use my 10,000 Spirit Saint normally. Zhou Fei thought to himself. At the same time, in the central region of the Scarlet Army, AUS, who was sitting in the combat room of the battleship and discussing offensive matters with the generals, also received the news that their army had been ambushed by an unfamiliar true god tier. US was surprised when he heard the news. Even most Divine Kingdom lords did not dare to provoke the Scarlet Army they led. Where did this group of true god tiers come from? It was one thing to see their army not dodge far away, but they actually dared to attack. He carefully observed the golden battleship in the photo. It's at least a true god tier battleship. Judging from its speed, it should be an elementary grade or intermediate grade true god tier battleship. No wonder they can't catch up to it. Wait! AUS looked at the battleship and his pupils constricted slightly. He saw a flag that was engraved on the body of the warship. The sun is surrounded by stars? This is the flag of the Blazing Sun Empire. This battleship is a battleship of the Blazing Sun Empire? The enemy is actually the Blazing Sun Empire? He thought for a moment before laughing out loud. Before the generals of the Chaos Scarlet Empire could figure out what their emperor was laughing about, they saw that AUS had already projected the information about his clone in front of the generals. Through the enlarged photo of the battleship, the generals quickly recognized the starry flag on it. That's the flag symbol of the Blazing Sun Empire. This Blazing Sun Empire is actually so bold. We haven't even reached him yet. But they actually dare to take the initiative to come knocking on our door. Ha ha ha. Looking at the number of true gods, they should be the main force of the Blazing Sun Empire. If we destroy all their true god-tier main forces here, won't the Blazing Sun Empire collapse on its own? That makes sense. Your Majesty, let's attack. I'll be the first to request to fight. Get out of the way, get out of the way. I'll definitely be the one to use this technique. What level are you at? Why are you competing with me for the first credit? The generals of the Chaos Scarlet Empire were extremely excited. They already had some opinions about His Majesty mobilizing the entire army to deal with a small lord of a myriad race. However, no one dared to say anything due to Aus prestige. Now that the target had suddenly appeared in front of them, didn't that mean that as long as they eliminated these guys, His Majesty would be able to take down the Blazing Sun Empire as quickly as possible and then do the mission given to him by the Crimson Overlord? They all looked at Aus. He hoped that His Majesty could quickly give them the order to attack. However, AUS looked at the information in front of him. The smile on his face disappeared, and he looked like he was deep in thought. When the generals saw this, even though they were a little anxious, none of them said anything. It's a little strange. US suddenly muttered to himself. It's indeed a little strange. Among the generals of the Chaos Scarlet Empire, the oldest general revealed a gratified expression when he heard what His Majesty said. Then he said solemnly, "How large is our army? Don't say that he is just a lord of a small race who has just advanced to a junior empire." He was the Chaos Conch, the first general that AUS had summoned from the Chaos Scarlet Empire. At the same time, he was also the strongest general in the empire. His strength had already reached the true god-tier advanced grade. Even some powerful Divine Kingdom Lord factions will be intimidated by our lineup. But the Blazing Sun Empire actually dared to take the initiative to ambush us at this time. What is this common people's regal trying to do? The old general asked. He was the Chaos Conch, the first general that AUS had summoned from the Chaos Scarlet Empire. At the same time, he was also the strongest general in the Empire. His strength had already reached the true God-tier advanced grade. When he was alive, he was the commander-in-chief of the Chaos Empire. He had incomparably deep combat experience. Therefore, when he saw this piece of information, he felt that something was amiss based on his experience leading troops. Unexpectedly, His Majesty had thought of it too, as expected of the successor of their Scarlet Chaos clan. In terms of intuition, he was indeed as sensitive as the Scarlet Chaos clan. Marshal Conch, what do you think common people's regal's intentions are? AUS looked up at the Chaos Conch and asked. From the way the other party fought, it seems like they want to rely on the speed advantage of their spaceship to fight us guerrilla warfare. If it's just guerrilla warfare, relying on their true God-tier battleships is indeed a good method. However, our forces are so huge. Even if he continues to guerrilla with us, we just need to ignore it. We won't lose too many troops and will reach the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. However, our forces are so huge. Even if he continues to guerrilla with us, we just need to ignore it. We won't lose too many troops and will reach the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. The biggest possibility this subject can think of is that the other party doesn't want to fight with us within or near the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. That's why they took the initiative to attack, wanting to fight us far away from the Blazing Sun Empire. The Chaos Conch said. Marshal Conch, what do you think we should do now? AUS asked. The Chaos Conch smiled and said, the more the enemy wants to do something, the more we won't do anything. Didn't they want to fight us here? Then we have to rush to their territory and completely destroy their empire. This is equivalent to cutting off the roots of that common people's regal. Without its roots, common people's regal will lose its status as a lord. At that time, his titles, status, power, and connections will all become a joke. As for these annoying flies, we can just keep them out of the army. A faint smile appeared on Aus's face. Then, he looked at the generals and said, Marshal Conch and I share the same thoughts. Follow Marshal Conch's instructions and set up defenses. Oh yes, put on the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. With the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield, the attacks of those true God-tier are nothing to worry about. AUS said calmly. Yes, Your Majesty, the generals said respectfully while clicking their tongues in their hearts. The Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield was one of the treasures of the Abyssal Blood race. It was a Master God-tier elementary grade defensive tool. It could defend against most attacks of Master God-tier elementary grade and lower level attacks. Moreover, its defensive range was extremely wide, enough to protect an army of 100 trillion. Most importantly, it could also move at will. If used well, it could protect an army of 1 trillion or even 1 trillion. It could be said to be a top-grade defensive treasure. AUS had obtained this treasure during the last Scarlet event. Later on, it had become one of the other party's trump cards. Unexpectedly, he had already used one of his trump cards before he even reached the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. It seemed like the common people's regal's guerrilla plan was going to fail soon. They thought to themselves. Then they went to do their work. At the same time, Bayun was still planning to engage in guerrilla warfare with them for a period of time when she saw the Scarlet Army that had just been lured out by them suddenly ignore their harassment and return to the army as if they had received some order. Bayun suddenly had a bad premonition when she saw this. The other party's military strength was far superior to hers. Even if their guerrilla tactics were a little troublesome to deal with, it was not to the extent that the other party did not even dare to counterattack, right? He thought for a while but could not come up with anything. Hence, he decided to launch another sneak attack. Bayun and company silently arrived at the edge of the Scarlet Army again, relying on Cosmos Emperor's speed and Eternal Mothership's anti-detection system. This time, they changed their target of attack and found an intermediate-grade Scarlet Empire ruled by the Abyssal Demon Goat race. Then, as usual, They got the true God tiers to mobilize collectively and launch a round of attacks at the other party. The next second, a bloody scene suddenly appeared in front of the Scarlet Army, blocking all the 194 true God tier law skill attacks that they had sent out. Bayun and the rest were stunned. They didn't have time to think. They immediately returned to Cosmos Emperor and distanced themselves from the Scarlet Army. Ha 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 ha. A Scarlet True God tier holding the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield in one hand and a Master God tier Elementary Grade Divine Crystals in the other laughed arrogantly as he watched Cosmos Emperor leave. Your Excellency. The Chaos Conch came in front of EOS and said with a smile. Those true God tiers of the Blazing Sun Empire fled when they saw that their attacks were blocked outside the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. EOS nodded expressionlessly. The Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield was one of the trump cards he had specially prepared for this invasion. He was naturally not surprised by this effect. These are just appetizers. When we reach the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire, that will be the start of the great dish, EOS said calmly. With His Majesty's current military strength, taking down the Blazing Sun Empire will be as easy as flipping his hand. The Chaos Conch complimented. EOS did not speak. He was naturally confident. With his current military strength, if he still couldn't take down the Blazing Sun Empire, he might as well let his main body commit suicide for the Crimson Overlord, the eternal mothership within the eternal world. Ha! Zhou Fight looked at the blood-red shield that suddenly appeared and raised his eyebrows slightly. Master God tier divine artifact? He muttered to himself. He looked past the blood-colored barrier. After observing for a while, his gaze landed on the Scarlet True God tier who was holding a blood-colored ball of light. His gaze focused slightly. Thief of Heart? Activate. The next second, the Thief of Heart pendant in his body lit up slightly. Then, a text notification suddenly appeared in front of him. Current items that can be stolen, Black God's Belt, spatial item, contains a lot of treasures. Stealing success rate, 95%. 1 true God tier advanced grade law skill book, extreme gravity, stealing success rate, 96%. 1 true God tier advanced law skill book, obliteration star, stealing success rate, 96%. 1 true God tier advanced grade divine artifact, cave realm abyss demon spear, stealing success rate, 94%. 1 high-tier deity-level advanced grade divine artifact, Mystic Jade Poison, stealing success rate, 96%. 1 Master God tier elementary grade divine artifact, Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield, stealing success rate, 80%. 1 Master God grade divine crystal, stealing success rate, 9%. This Scarlet True God tier didn't have many things on him. Most of his collections were stored in his spatial items. Zhou Fight's gaze immediately landed on the only Master God tier elementary grade divine artifact, the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. As expected, it's on this guy. 80% chance? It's already a very high probability. I can try to steal it. At the thought of this, Zhou Fight immediately activated Thief of Heart. At the same time, Bayun and the rest were not discouraged after their first attack failed. They had already expected this situation before they attacked. They immediately changed their positions, planning to avoid the other party's defensive divine artifact and attack the other positions of the Scarlet Army. Just as they approached the edge of another Scarlet Army and launched a new round of true God tier law skills, the Scarlet True God tier holding the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield sneered and teleported to the front of the attacked Scarlet Army. Then, he activated the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. He was a true God tier advanced grade God spirit, so he was naturally unable to activate this Master God tier elementary grade divine artifact. However, one of the benefits of this Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield was that he could not only rely on a Master God tier to activate it. He could also use Master God tier divine crystals to activate this Master God tier elementary grade divine artifact. He was now relying on the 2 Master God tier divine crystals that AUS had left for him, He was using this extremely powerful Master God-tier divine artifact, and the moment he activated it, the same blood-colored defensive barrier appeared out of thin air again, blocking the 194 true God-tier law skills. Seeing this, Bayun and the rest could not help but grit their teeth. Was he going to be blocked by this thing again? If this thing could always defend against their attacks, how could their next plan of luring the enemy continue? Ha ha ha! When the Scarlet True God-tier holding the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield saw that he was about to block the other party's attack in time, he could not help but smile smugly again. He looked at the Master God-tier Elementary Grade Divine Artifact in his hand with burning eyes. What a treasure! What a great treasure! He muttered to himself. If it was in the past, he would have found it hard to imagine how a true God-tier Advanced Grade God Spirit could withstand the combined attack of nearly 200 true God-tier God Spirits alone. But now, with a Master God-tier Divine Artifact and a Master God-tier Divine Crystals, he had easily done it. This was the terrifying aspect of a Master God-tier Divine Artifact. If not for AUS being too terrifying, he would have taken this Master God-tier Divine Artifact and fled. But in the next moment, his eyes widened, and his face suddenly turned extremely pale. That was because the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield in his hand had actually vanished into thin air? Where's the Master God-tier Divine Artifact? Where's your Excellency Aus Master God Divine Artifact? He cried out. He was incomparably terrified. How was he going to explain this to AUS after losing this Master God-tier Divine Artifact? At this moment, he suddenly sensed something and looked up at the sky. The 194 various true God-tier law skill attacks were like a waterfall that descended from the sky as they roared towards he and the trillion-strong army behind him. He perished before he could say anything else. The eternal mothership within the eternal world. Zhou Feit looked at the blood-colored ball of light that had suddenly appeared in his hand, which was the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield, a Master God-tier Elementary Grade Divine Artifact. A smile appeared on his face. I got it on the first try. We're in luck. Thief of Heart did well in his first battle. He carefully sized up this Master God-tier Elementary Grade Divine Artifact for a while before continuing to look at the battlefield where Bayun and the others were. Bayun and the rest were also very surprised when they discovered that the blood-colored light barrier had actually disappeared into thin air. However, they didn't have time to think too much about it. They immediately turned around and returned to Cosmos Emperor before quickly leaving the Scarlet Army. Bayun and the others discussed this matter again after escaping from the pursuit of the army behind them. Why did that blood-colored light shield suddenly disappear? That's right. If that light barrier was still there, our attacks would probably not be effective. What's the point of thinking so much? Don't we know that we can just eliminate the enemy? I saw that the blood-colored light ball in the hand of the God Spirit holding the blood-colored light ball suddenly disappeared. That blood-colored light ball should be the source of that blood-colored light shield. I guess that it might be a high-level God Spirit passing by who couldn't stand the arrogant actions of the Scarlet Army. So he attacked, right? Do you think it's possible that it was done by our Lord? Your Majesty? I've never seen Your Majesty use such a method. How can the methods that His Majesty has mastered be something you can imagine? That's a Master God-tier Elementary Grade Divine Artifact. This Emperor took it away. Continue to attack. Zhou Feit's voice resounded in their ears just as the generals and God Spirits were discussing. The generals and God Spirits were stunned. Then, they hurriedly said respectfully, "Thank you, Your Majesty. Don't waste time. Continue the guerrilla attack." Zhou Feit said calmly. Even though this battle was led by Bayun to lure the enemy, could he really watch everything happen and not care about anything? Yes, Your Majesty. Bayun and the rest knew that they had His Majesty backing them up, so they could not help but perk up and respond. Then he started preparing to attack again. In a true God-tier intermediate grade Scarlet battleship, AUS was discussing with the generals and God Spirits about the invasion plan after taking down the Blazing Sun Empire. The invasion of the High Continent this time was not as simple as an invasion. After the invasion ended, there was also the content of the event that completely took root in the High Continent. They had to be prepared for this in advance so that they could obtain the greatest benefits in the end. Against the Fire God Empire, I planned to. Just as AUS was about to say something, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He had an ominous premonition, which made him stand rooted to the ground. Your Majesty, the generals and god spirits probed, seeing that His Majesty did not speak for a long time. It's fine, let's continue. AUS came back to his senses and thought that he was hallucinating. He waved his hand and planned to continue. He felt that something bad had happened. AUS was a little distracted. However, at this moment, report! A messenger quickly ran in, knelt in front of AUS, and reported, "Reporting to Your Majesty, our Scarlet Army was attacked by the true God tier again just now. A total of more than 1,350 billion Scarlet soldiers died. More than 2,870 billion soldiers were injured. 1,632 Scarlet God spirits died. And 6 Scarlet True God tiers also died in the enemy's attack." Ao's expression immediately darkened. "What's that Zhongxiang doing? Didn't I already give the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield to him? Why didn't he protect our soldiers and God spirits in time?" Ao's voice was cold, and he was already a little angry. A Master God tier Divine Artifact, and 1 Master God tier Divine Crystals. It was more than enough for Zhongxiang to protect his soldiers with the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. He did not expect the other party to not even be able to complete such a simple mission. What an incompetent fellow. US had already thought about it. When this fellow returned, he would punish him properly. Among the Scarlet Fog monsters, the law of the jungle had always advocated the survival of the fittest, and the strong were respected. He had to show off his strength to the other party so that this guy could work for him in the future. Faced with His Majesty's cold words, the messenger's body suddenly trembled. Your Majesty, His Excellency Zhongxiang, His Excellency Zhongxiang has fallen," the messenger said in a trembling voice. "What?" Ao's pupils instantly dilated. He immediately grabbed the messenger and asked anxiously, "What about my Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield? Your Majesty, we only found the incomplete corpse of Your Excellency Zhongxiang. As for your treasure, we didn't find it." The messenger did not dare to speak. Bang! The messenger's body directly shattered into countless pieces of purple flesh. The entire combat conference room was sprayed with a layer of purple flesh. Even the generals and god spirits present were stained with some flesh and blood. They looked bloody and miserable. However, they did not dare to be angry. They held their breaths and looked at their emperor carefully. He was afraid that His Majesty would do something irrational. At the same time, they were shocked. They never expected that after Zhongxiang took His Majesty's treasure, not only did he not calm down the war, he even lost His Majesty's treasure. They suddenly felt that Zhongxiang's death might be a good thing for him. Otherwise, if he were to fall into His Majesty's hands, the furious His Majesty might do something to Zhongxiang that would make him wish he was dead. At this moment, AUS was infuriated and dizzy. That was one of his important trump cards. He had paid countless prices and offended many of the higher-ups of the Scarlet Clan. He had paid countless promises and experienced countless dangers to obtain this Master God tier Divine Artifact. Even a true Master God tier might not necessarily have a Master God tier Divine Artifact, and he actually lost it? While he had other Master God tier level means, he could not accept such a loss. Could it be picked up by other fog monsters? This thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Then this thought lingered. Zhongxiang did not leave the Scarlet Army before he died. In other words, his Master God tier elementary grade Divine Artifact was lost inside the Scarlet Army. The person who took it was most likely the fog monsters of the other Scarlet factions. There was a high chance that it was a Scarlet God Spirit or even a true God tier. Only they truly knew how valuable a Master God tier Divine Artifact was, and they dared and had the ability to take practical action to obtain the true God tier Divine Artifacts. However, even though he was suspicious, he did not say anything on the surface. Instead, After a moment of silence, he ordered in a deep voice, "Pass down the order. Order the entire army to search for the Imperial Blood Heavenly Shield. If we can find it, I will owe him a favor. In addition, I will give him another Master God tier level method. If there's anyone who deliberately hides and wants to take my treasure, I'll kill them even if I don't care about the plan in front of me." Ao's voice was extremely cold and resolute. No one doubted Ao's determination. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Scarlet Generals and God Spirits did not dare to be negligent and said respectfully. Aus sat in his seat in a daze after passing down the order. He was not even in the mood for the war deployment meeting in front of him. "My Master God tier divine artifact." Us looked calm on the surface, but his heart ached. "Your Majesty, what if the other party comes to ambush us next?" A general probed. "Order the true God tiers in the army to guard the borders of the army. If they encounter another true God tier from the Blazing Sun Empire who ambushes them, immediately surround and kill them. All the true God tier warships in the army can be mobilized. As long as we can annihilate the other party, we can pay any price. In addition, assign some defensive areas to those high-level Scarlet Empires. Let them join forces with the true God tier Scarlet to prevent the enemy from attacking again." Us ordered calmly. "Are we really not going to take the initiative to attack and eliminate these annoying flies? The other party has less than 200 true God tiers." The general said in disbelief. There were more than 5,000 true God tiers and more than 33 million ordinary God spirits. As for the number of ordinary soldiers, there were more than 8,000 trillion of them. With such a huge difference in military strength, they actually had to endure the other party's harassing attack and not choose to attack and destroy them. He looked at him in disbelief, not understanding why His Majesty would make such a decision. "Don't underestimate any regal. Since the other party dares to ignore the difference in strength and send troops to harass us, they must have a motive. If we really send troops out to chase after them, we will truly fall into the enemy's trap. The most stable way for us to win now is to attack the other party's territory and cut off their routes. This way, the enemy will naturally collapse on their own." Us said lightly, then looked at him indifferently. "Also, how dare you question the decision of me and the Chaos Conch? Go receive your punishment. Thank you for your kindness, Your Majesty." This general had nothing to say. Even though he was still a little unconvinced by Ao's decision, he still silently accepted his punishment. Us turned to look at the generals in front of him and said, "Continue the discussion. I'll go out and take a look." "Yes, Your Majesty." With that, the generals began to discuss again. Aus flew out of the battleship and summoned the battleship's intelligence in the air. He turned on the panoramic mode and checked the scene around the army. A moment later, Aus flew out of the battleship and summoned the battleship's intelligence in the air. He turned on the panoramic mode and checked the scene around the army. Bayun and company were extremely fast. After firing a round of true God tier volleys and eliminating more than 130 billion Scarlet soldiers, more than 500 Scarlet God spirits, and 4 Scarlet true God tiers, they immediately flew back into Cosmos Emperor and quickly flew into the distance. Us frowned. He could tell that if he hadn't given the order just now, allowing more true God tiers and high-level Scarlet Empires to guard the borders of the Scarlet Army, the number of casualties would have been even higher. Only an intermediate-grade true God tier battleship can stop these true God tiers. Aus immediately issued an order to the generals in the combat conference room to use the true God tier intermediate-grade battleship. Aus immediately issued an order to the generals in the combat conference room to use the true God tier intermediate-grade battleship. As for true God tier advanced-grade battleships, even the high-level Scarlet Divine Kingdom might not have that, let alone the Scarlet Empire. It was already not bad for them to have an intermediate true God tier battleship. At the same time, after Bayun and the others retreated, they originally thought that this was just an ordinary surprise attack. In the end, when they saw the enemy chasing after them, and through the true God tier AI lifeform on Cosmos the Arch, they realized that the other party was one of the 93 high-level Scarlet Empires, the mysterious Dark Empire. They were first stunned, then ecstatic. These guys finally couldn't help but be lured out. Bai Yi said in surprise. It's not just the mysterious Dark Empire. Other than the mysterious Dark Empire, there are more than 600 Scarlet True God tiers and more than 8 million Scarlet God spirits. Good God! How generous! We actually attracted so many enemies? The generals were surprised and delighted. Great Emperor, quickly report this to His Majesty. Bai Yun immediately gave the order. All right, Legion Commander. The Cosmos Emperor's AI replied and immediately transmitted this news to Zhou Fight. The Eternal Mothership within the Eternal World. This Emperor has already seen it. Zhou Fight saw the message from Bai Yun and smiled. Then, with a thought, he saw Linger appear in front of he out of thin air. Big brother, what's wrong? After Linger appeared, she couldn't help but be shocked. However, when she saw that it was her big brother who had teleported her over, she heaved a sigh of relief and asked curiously. Linger, our army attracted a group of enemies. Use your legendary tier Insight Defection to incite the adversaries of the high-level Scarlet Empire. Then, there's no need to immediately let them fight among themselves. Instead, they'll conceal and wait for my orders. Zhou Fight said. Okay, big brother. Linger immediately agreed. Zhou Fight nodded and told her some details of the battle. Then, he teleported her back to her army. Then, Zhou Fight saw Linger leading a group of long-range spellcasting soldiers and piloting another Cosmos Emperor away from the Eternal Mothership. Then, through the true God-tier world-destroying cannon on Cosmos Emperor, she fired a shot at the other party's true God-tier warship from afar. The strength of this shot was only at the true God-tier intermediate grade in order to conceal the true grade of the obscure Cosmos Emperor. However, even so, it still only pierced a huge hole hundreds of thousands of kilometers in diameter in the true God-tier elementary grade Scarlet battleship of the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire. It almost blew up the engine of this battleship and completely destroyed it. This shot had actually missed on purpose. This was also what Zhou Fight told Linger to do. The goal was naturally to let the spies of the Insight Defection return to the Scarlet Army and hide. However, even though this shot did not destroy the true God-tier elementary grade of the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire, it still gave the other group a fright. The other party immediately returned Cosmos Emperor's shot through the Scarlet battleship. Cosmos Emperor could have dodged it, but Zhou told Linger not to dodge and took the blast head-on. Cosmos Emperor could have dodged it, but Zhou told Linger not to dodge and took the blast head-on. Linger immediately activated Legendary Tier Insight Defection the moment the other group counterattacked. Then, he saw her happy face and immediately reported the good news to Zhou Fight. Big brother, I've incited more than 320 billion Scarlet soldiers, more than 4,000 Scarlet God spirits, and 6 Scarlet True God tiers. Linger was extremely excited. Was this the result of the Insight Defection against high-level Empire tier factions? She was so surprised that she almost suffocated. Big brother, I'll transmit all these troops to you later. I'm just a small kingdom. I don't need so many soldiers and god spirits. Linger thought of something and hurriedly said. Linger's spiritual medicine kingdom was only at the beginner kingdom level. With so many soldiers, let alone the beginner kingdom, they were almost half of the forces of the lords of the beginner-level divine kingdom. She did not dare to accept this gift. You don't have to transmit it all to me. Let's follow the old rules. After the war, just transmit 2/5 to me. It's not just you. The other Lord members of the Star Alliance are the same. Zhou Fight shook his head. The Lord factions of the Star Alliance were all influenced by his Lord talent, the Peaceful Times, and were completely loyal to him. It didn't matter who kept this soldier. He would listen to his orders anyway. Zhou Fight chose to leave it to them. Compared to his military strength, the Star Alliance members under his command were still a little weak. In the future, these subordinates' main bodies would be of great use. Therefore, he might as well take this opportunity to strengthen their forces so that they could help him better in the future. I understand. Thank you, big brother. Linger saw that Zhou Fight was serious and wasn't joking. She didn't refuse him and replied happily. Order your men to retreat to the Scarlet Army. Then we'll keep fishing. Zhou Fight turned around and looked at the virtual reality in front of him. Yes, big brother. Linger nodded vigorously. After Linger left, Zhou Fight did not ask the other lords of the Star Alliance to come over. Instead, he continued to instigate the other lord factions in the Insight defection. This was because other than the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire, most of the god spirits were too scattered. They were not from the same Scarlet Lord faction. Even if the lords under him used the precious Insight defection, they would not be able to obtain much in return. It was better to keep it like this. After Baiyun and the rest successfully lured the next high-level Scarlet Empire, it would not be too late to get the lords under them to come over and instigate Insight defection. At the same time, the Scarlet battleship that had a huge hole blasted open by the world-destroying cannon. The Scarlet God spirits inside were furious when they saw that not only were they unable to chase after it, but even their precious true God-tier elementary-grade Scarlet battleship was damaged. Why did these guys who only knew how to escape use such a disgusting method of fighting? However, even though they were a little exasperated, they really felt helpless in the face of such a situation. They couldn't catch up to him, nor could they beat him. How were they supposed to continue playing like this? At this moment, a Scarlet General looked at the virtual screen in front of him and was suddenly pleasantly surprised. Look! Why did they stop? He shouted. Huh! Are you serious? The Scarlet Generals immediately looked over. Then they saw that the huge golden spaceship actually stopped in midair. Then, close to 10 trillion troops, more than 80,000 god spirits, and 194 true god tiers flew out of the spaceship. It was not worth mentioning before the even more shocking Scarlet Army, even though the number was huge. When all the Scarlet god spirits in the Scarlet battleships saw this scene, they were first stunned, then immediately laughed out loud. Am I seeing things? What are these people from the Blazing Sun Empire trying to do? Do they want to face us head-on and fight to the death? I'm dying of laughter. A mere 10 trillion troops, more than 80,000 god spirits, and less than 200 true god tiers dare to fight against more than 600 trillion soldiers, more than 8 million Scarlet god spirits, and more than 600 true god tiers. Are these guys crazy? I think the other party knows that sooner or later, we'll have to attack the territory of the Blazing Sun Empire. They know that there will be a war sooner or later. Since that's the case, we might as well start this war in advance so as to avoid starting a war in their territory and destroying their empire. Fair enough. But could this be a plot by the enemy? Plot? Any conspiracy is useless in front of the absolute difference in strength. That's right. Let's not waste time. Let's give them the fight they want so they won't think that we're afraid of them. The Scarlet God Spirits discussed as they looked at the true God-tier advanced grade leader of the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire. He was the leader on this trip. Whether this battle would begin or not depended on the other party's final decision. The true God-tier leader of the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire did not hesitate. The purpose of their trip was to eliminate this group of harassers. Since the other party had already made it clear that they were going to stop and face them head-on. They had no reason to refuse, and they could not refuse. All soldiers who can fight in the air, leave the spaceship and prepare to destroy the other party. He said in a deep voice. Their warships were clearly not as powerful as the other parties. Since the other party was willing to give up this advantage to fight them, they would not hold back either. He couldn't help but look at him as he spoke. He didn't expect that this Lord of the Blazing Sun would have so many soldiers who could fly. Flying techniques were usually only easily mastered by extraordinary individuals above the yellow gold tier. He could clearly see that all of them had flight techniques at a glance. Even those low-level extraordinaires at the black iron, green bronze tier, and white silver tier levels were wearing flying technology equipment. Moreover, the number was extremely shocking. How rich! He looked cold on the surface, but he was very emotional on the inside. It seemed that the other party had a very good relationship with the Machina race. Moreover, his wealth was astonishing. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have so many technological items. Soon, more than 600 trillion soldiers, more than 8 million Scarlet God spirits, and more than 600 Scarlet True Gods flew out of the Scarlet battleship. Then, they quickly arranged themselves in formation and summoned many God-tier, and even true God-tier battle formations. ready to fight the soldiers and god spirits of the Blazing Sun Empire at any time. Just as they finished arranging the army formation, a great voice suddenly sounded in the minds of all the scarlet life forms present. I am the Crimson Overlord. The enemy you are facing now is the scarlet natural enemy that I hate the most. It is the seed of the Supreme Will's direct army. It has the possibility of growing into a supreme army in the future. They are still weak at the moment. You need to do your best to kill them all. If you do well, I will naturally bestow you with gifts. If you can't do it or even deliberately let them go, you will be regarded as traitors and humiliation by the Scarlet Forces. You will be despised and wanted by all the Scarlet Forces. You must destroy them all. Don't leave anyone alive. This Crimson Overlord's voice actually revealed a rare trace of hatred and killing intent. Many Scarlet life forms, Scarlet God spirits, and Scarlet True God tier could not help but be shocked. What did this army known as Scarlet Natural Enemy do to actually break the usually cold Crimson Overlord's defense the moment they appeared? The Scarlet Natural Enemy? Was it referring to these guys as the natural enemies of the Scarlet Forces? They looked at the army of the Blazing Sun Empire in the distance again, their expressions gradually turning solemn and cold. It was different from the life forms under the Supreme Will. All the Scarlet life forms, including those transformed by the Scarlet Fog, regarded the Crimson Overlord as their biological mother and the Supreme God Spirit in their hearts. Therefore, all of them were extremely loyal to and believed in the Crimson Overlord. Therefore, after the Crimson Overlord gave this order, they no longer hesitated. They were determined to destroy the opponent in front of them, even if it meant sacrificing their lives. Prepare to attack. The true God-tier leader of the Dark Gloom Scarlet Empire said coldly. Yes, the trillions of Scarlet troops roared in unison, emitting a sound that shook the heavens and the earth, causing the space-time to tremble. At the same time, inside the hidden Eternal Mothership, Zhou Fight also gazed at the confrontation below with a serious expression. Choosing to fight on the frontal battlefield was his personal order. Even though he also knew that the difference in military strength between the two sides was huge, and that the difference between soldiers and god spirits was hundreds of times greater, he still chose to give this order. He naturally had his reasons for doing so. The first and most important reason was that he wanted to use this confrontation and the next 2 days to greatly increase the strength of his troops by massacring the Scarlet Fog monsters. The enemies and battlefields that he came into contact with now were only Diamond tier and above experts who had a certain level of self-preservation on the battlefield. Soldiers below the Diamond tier would still be easily killed by the aftershocks of the battle, even if his soldier type had reached the Empire tier level. As for him, he recruited new recruits every day and made sure that there were too many low-level troops under him. Even with the mythical tier unique Lord talent, they couldn't quickly advance to Diamond level and above in a short period of time. Therefore, Zhou Fight had his eyes on Ao's Scarlet Army. They would definitely be reborn and become top-notch superhumans who were indomitable and fearless in conflict as long as they survived the 2 days of war and slaughter.